So as expected, Dragon Age the Veilguard is massively tanking. The numbers are just getting less and less and less in this particular video game, and it's something that we don't usually see for RPGs that are supposed to have multiple endings, multiple different branches you're allowed to take, blah, blah, blah. And that's because ultimately people see this game for what it is. It is an action game that supposedly features some RPG elements, but it's nowhere near enough to get yourself some long-term playability like it is, for example, Baldur's Gate 3 or anything like that. So again, ladies and gentlemen, apparently Dragon Age the Veilguard's peak player counts have dropped by over 30%, all-time peak in just 7 days.
How embarrassing. How embarrassing.
Now, you're probably asking yourself, gee, why would it drop this much, right? Like most people haven't even completed the game. If you go to SteamDB and you look at the achievement tab, you'll realize that there's only a small percentage of people that have actually completed the game on Steam. So why is this game dropping 30% players in just 7 days? There's got to be a reason for that. And well, quite frankly, it's what I've been saying for the longest time. There is a bunch of normies out there that bought this title thinking that Dragon Age was going to be an actual Dragon Age game, right? Most people saw Dragon Age the Veilguard and they thought to themselves, oh wow, haven't played a game in 10 years that was based in Dragon Age, right? Can't wait to play this. This is going to be exciting, right? And they actually play the game and they realize, wow, what the hell kind of liberal gender studies degree nonsense did I just buy? So let's get into this article, guys, from Phantom Pulse. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. So it says Dragon Age the Veilguard peak player count decreases over 30% from an all-time peak in just 1 week. Dragon Age the Veilguard hit a peak concurrent player count of 89,418 on Sunday, November 3rd, during the game's first weekend since it released on October 31st. A week later, and the peak player count only hit 61,063. That is a decline of 31.7%. For comparison, Baldur's Gate 3 hit an all-time peak concurrent player count of 875,343 on August 13th of 2023. A week later, and the peak player count had only declined to 813,288. That is only a decline of 7.09%. Now, again, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's very obvious and very clear that most games would probably decline around 10 to 15% or so after the first week, because obviously you have the big rush. Everybody's trying to buy it when it's brand new, especially when it's a game like this, right? People are going to play it consistently for a few days until eventually they either get close to beating it or they get to a point where there's just so much to do that it's clearly going to take a lot of time, and people can't dedicate that much hours all the time to playing a game like that. I get it. Games like this are an investment. Really, they're an investment of your time, and I understand that. But a game like this that is dropping 31% in the first week, when you already don't have great numbers, that's not good, right? That's not good. It shows me a couple of things, okay? It shows me, number one, that the game was carried by streamers, in my opinion, right? This game was absolutely carried by streamers streaming the game and showcasing just how bad it was to their fan base. So that's why the concurrent player count was so high, even though the copies sold are seemingly less than Metaphor Refantasio, and that game had an 85,000 peak player count and yet sold over 1 million copies. This game had an 89,000 peak player count and barely sold 500,000 copies if it's lucky. So it clearly shows that this game was carried by controversy and carried by hype, at least for the first initial numbers. But what ends up happening is that after a couple of hours, when people do their first initial streams, a lot of people probably refunded the game. You had streamers, they probably bought the game just so they can stream it and then refund it. Yeah, I'm not lying. I've seen people buy this game, play this game for a couple of hours, and then never play it again. So they're clearly buying it just to refund it. That way they could get the initial hit on their streams for the first day. That's number one. Number two, you got all the normies who are buying this game, and I've talked about this to nausea. They buy the game expecting something different, and then when they play it, they realize, oh my God, what the hell did I buy? And then they refund it. So you got those people. Then you got the people who refund physical copies on console. But again, we're talking about Steam numbers, so we're just going to stick to that. It's very clear that this is a mix of controversy carrying the concurrent number very high or higher than it should have been. And it's also a mix of people refunding it. Those two things together start to make the numbers make a lot more sense than they do, because otherwise this doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense that a game with 89,000 peak concurrent players didn't even sell past 500,000 copies. It doesn't make any sense, right? It seems very odd to me, because every game that's ever hit that much current players will sell over 1 million copies, but this one's not even close to half of that. So something clearly is wrong here. Then it says that, in fact, Baldur's Gate 3 had a 76% higher peak concurrent player count than Dragon Age: The Veilguard in the last 24 hours. It hit a peak concurrent player count of 107,658. This game is disgusting, bro. It's absolutely disgusting. The amount of numbers that it's able to pull is disgusting, but that's because it has a disgusting amount of replayability. You can talk to someone who played Baldur's Gate 3, and I guarantee you most of the decisions do not line up with yours. There is that much opportunity for a difference in a playthrough, and then people just keep playing and playing and playing to experience it, you know, the different playthroughs that they possibly can experience. Then it says, similarly, Elden Ring hit a peak concurrent player count of 953,426 on March 5th of 2023. A week after hitting its all-time peak, it still had a peak concurrent of 825,277 players. That's only a decline of 13.4%. Now, keep in mind, with Elden Ring, these games are extremely difficult, right? People will play for the first couple of days and they'll end up either rage quitting for a little while, or they'll come back to it. You know, after a boss kicks their ass for too long, they'll take a break, come back to it a few days later with a clearer mind and try to beat it. You know what I'm saying? So it makes sense that there's people that will end up, you know, not playing it after the first week. But even that game only experienced 13.4%, nowhere near 31%. Then it says, furthermore, the game hit its all-time peak in its second weekend. In its first Saturday, February 26, 2023, it hit a peak of 861,538. So the game actually saw its peak concurrent players increase by 10.6% in its second weekend. Well, look at that. Isn't that incredible? The decline in Dragon Age: The Veilguard's peak concurrent player counts could be appearing as evidence reports of players are refunding the game. YouTuber Endymion originally shared that he has an inside source and informed him that around 30,000 people had refunded the game after originally purchasing it. He shared on a YouTube upload, I'm also told in terms of refunds, that currently the game had at least 30,000 refunds in the past few days, which is not good for your game that has barely sold 500,000 copies to be hemorrhaging players like this. So again, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's very clear and very obvious what's happening with this game. Anybody with a brain can see it. You can have all of these fake shills out there giving you the bullshit toxic positivity and telling you everything is fine. The game is a massive success. You know how many people I've seen on Twitter say that this game is a massive success, and when you start asking them about numbers and budgets and whatnot and how the numbers, like the math doesn't math, they immediately either block you or they stop responding to you, because nobody wants to face the truth, right? This game has well over $200 million in budget, easily. 10 years of development, over $200 million in budget, and that's being conservative with the numbers. Then, on top of that, you got 500,000 copies sold on Steam. You probably got 250,000 sold on console, to be honest with you, because the numbers don't seem as strong as they were hoping on console. So you have less than 1 million sales, and even if you were at 1 million sales, you're still only, what, 1/4, 1/5 of your budget, and that's assuming you keep every dollar, which you don't keep every dollar. You obviously have to share it with the retailer. Steam takes 30% by themselves. So what are we doing? Nobody wants to face the truth. Nobody wants to admit it. The shills are out there crying. They're panicking. Jason Schreier deleted all his tweets about Dragon Age: The Veilguard being a massive success because he realized how retarded he looked now that the numbers have come out, and he thought this game was going to do 1 million in a day. That's really what it is. He thought he partied way too early, and he thought that this game was going to do over 1 million in the first day. Well, guess what? We're not anywhere close, and everybody's wondering, where's EA? Why are you so quiet? Where's BioWare with your announcements about how many sales you did? Why it's so quiet? You know, the only thing EA ever said, or anything BioWare ever said, all they said was that this is the biggest release they've ever had on Steam. That's all they said. That is the bullshit way of trying to say we didn't hit 1 million sales, but we're going to try to take it as a win anyway. Yeah, it's an absolute joke. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.